AI might be the most important new computer technology ever. It's storming every industry and literally billions of dollars are being invested. So buckle up. The problem is that AI needs a lot of speed and processing power. So how do you compete without costs spiraling out of control? It's time to upgrade to the next generation of the cloud, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, or OCI. OCI is a single platform for your infrastructure, database, application development, and AI needs. OCI has 4 to 8 times the bandwidth of other clouds, offers one consistent price instead of a variable regional pricing, and of course, nobody does data better than Oracle. So now you can train your AI models at twice the speed and less than half the cost of other clouds. If you want to do more and spend less like Uber, 8x8, and Databricks Mosaic, take a free test drive of OCI at oracle.com/automate. That's oracle.com/automate. oracle.com/automate.
Good afternoon. Let's do some business. We are doing it live and doing more at 4 weekday afternoons. We get right down to business here with the News Driven Hour right after Ben Shapiro and just before the 790 KBC News Blitz with Randy Wang at 5. Mottek On Money. We're doing more at 4 here, live on the air right now on 790 KBC, streaming live online worldwide at kbc.com and your on-demand Mottek On Money podcast, kbc.com, Apple, iTunes, and all your favorite podcast platforms. Stocks finishing higher today, another triple-digit move for the Dow, this time on the upside. The S&P 500 and NASDAQ also scoring their 5th consecutive days of gains after a mild July consumer price index first thing this morning, reinforcing the view that the Fed is about to cut rates in September. The Dow coming in for a closing gain of 243 points, and it's back above 40,000 now, settling at 40,008. The S&P 500 moved to 21 points at 5,455, and the NASDAQ eked out a gain of 5 points at 17,193. The NASDAQ ended higher just in the final minutes of trading and finished up by 5 points. We saw the bond yields finishing lower for the 4th time in as many trading sessions today. The yield on the 10-year note now 3.84%. That's the one that impacts the fixed-rate mortgage rates, which have been coming down lately. New reading on inflation right out of the gate today. The cost of consumer goods and services rose again in July, and that increase was just 0.2% last month. It was an increase. The measure had fallen in June for the first time since 2020. The 12-month rate of inflation slowed to 2.9%, still hotter than the Fed's 2% target. Went from 3.0 to 2.9% in July, touching the lowest level since the spring of 2021. The more closely followed core consumer price index that takes out food and energy also moved up 0.2%. The yearly rate of core inflation now, taking out food and energy, edged lower to 3.2% from 3.3%, also the lowest seen in 3 years. What's up, you ask? Well, nothing but the rent, just about. The cost of housing in the month of July accounted for 90% of the increase in consumer inflation. The index for rent rose 0.5% from a month earlier, and the index for owner's equivalent rent rose 0.4%, according to the Consumer Price Index, which came out today. The sharp rebound in rental prices conflicts with private reports of an ongoing slowdown in rents. Nationwide median asking rent across all types of bedrooms was down for the first time in 4 years, according to a Redfin report that came out today. Median asking rent was $1,647 in July, down 0.2% from the previous month, according to Redfin. Of course, that monthly rate a lot higher here in the Southern California area. Looks like the S&P 500's consumer staples sector was moving higher today, helped by a more than 7% advance in Kellanova stock after privately held candy company Mars announced a deal to acquire the maker of Pringles. That's Kellanova, in a nearly $36 billion deal. Kellanova, we hardly knew you making Pringles. The consumer staples sector was on pace for a new all-time closing high today. Kellanova shares moving sharply higher on that news. LA's crime wave, meanwhile, continues with the focus of attention these days on more break-ins at stores and homes, especially in the San Fernando Valley. Quick action by Beverly Hills police ended up with at least one person arrested after a break-in at a Beverly Hills pharmacy, which ended in a high-speed chase of a stolen SUV in South L.A. We'll get the latest on crime with the Honorable Dennis Zine, former Los Angeles City Council member, longtime LAPD sergeant, and current LAPD Reserve Officer. Dennis Zine will be back on the line later this hour. Is California America's most divisive state? That question is asked and answered by veteran Orange County Register business columnist Jonathan Lansner, who will be joining me live later this hour to talk business. But first, on your money, the markets, the economy, and the whole works now. Joining us live, Brian Perry, Chief Investment Strategist and Portfolio Manager at Mint Asset Management at mintassetmanagement.com, also author of the 25% Cash Machine. Brian Perry, thanks very much for coming to the line. It's been a while since we chatted behind live microphones with some wild gyrations in the markets over the past couple of weeks, and looks like a rebound this week. Give us your view of things here at the moment.
Always good to be with you, Frank, and thank you very much for your audience. There's nothing short of an impressive snapback rally. When you get something that, like we had this rinse, cycle go through the market here in the last week and a half that really took people by surprise. The Dow was down 1,000 points last Monday. And algorithms and everything else is being complained, a confluence of events, from the yen carry trade to the softer jobs number to the threat of Iran going back in, retaliating against Israel, a number of things, and some not so impressive Mag 7 numbers coming out by a few of the companies. So you had this, this perfect storm conditions here, which really took the market, and it kneecapped the bull trend, technically speaking. So the market's in a rebuilding mode right now. It's gotten back 50% of its recent losses here, and in a very impressive V-type shape, forms, which is something that technicians, are always suspect of. You want to see this associated with very strong volume, and that has not been the case. It's been lighter volume every day on the way up, on the way back up here in this rally. So something to be very careful of here. And in the event that all the short indicators are overbought, there's some really good tea leaves out there which are looking better here for the Federal Reserve and for inflation and these things here. So you've got a crossroads and a bifurcation of a lot of things happening right now. So it's no surprise that we're seeing volatility here, really elevated here. I try to look at people that are really super smart in this business here and what we do, Frank. And Blackstone CEO John Gray, over the last couple of days here, he commented on a very, very compelling interview, how they're investing $50 billion just in the last quarter here in commercial real estate when everybody's been really down and hard on the sector. During Q2, so before the all clear sign, so to speak, that everybody wants to see. So true to form, why Blackstone is so great at what they do, they're in there buying when everyone else is still watching and waiting. So he sees a resilient economy, and they have a very deep bench and is extremely a strong R&D department there. So it's important to follow the movements of these huge private equity firms. Cost of capital is already coming down, well ahead of what the Fed's intentions are to do at the next September 18 FOMC meeting, which is now becoming, instead of a 50 basis point cut, a 25 basis point based upon today's CPI number, which was, right in line. But as you noted, the shelter index, which is 90% of the increase of the number we saw today, is tough. So apartment REITs are probably a pretty good place for people to look. Because affordability is still tough, and the job market is kind of, new hires are on hold, but there's not a lot of layoffs. So we're kind of hitting in this area here where a lot of people are just not quite sure. Beyond that, you got a lot of big stories here already this week. It's only Wednesday, and you got Home Depot, forecasting a little bit slower consumer spending, Frank, but also the stock traded higher based upon the fact that people are saving their money to do, home improvement projects at better interest rates. So that perception is always greater than reality. And on that note, you had, Warren Buffett today, right after the close, and disclosed he's buying 690,000 shares of Ulta Beauty. And whose wife doesn't go to Ulta Beauty? My wife goes there a lot. So, the stock is way down off its high, and it's a great valuation here. And then the market basically is giving a blind eye right now to geopolitics. It just figures out the Middle East will always be the Middle East. China's always going to be China, and there's issues going on. The Ukraine-Russia thing is going to keep going. But what the market cares about right now, most of all, is inflation and Fed policy, and that's why equities are bouncing back. But at the same time, it's what I would not call a hollow rally, but it's not a full blown rally backed by what you want to see is major buying into this type of rally, reflex rally. So it opens up the door, Frank, to some backing and filling.
We're on the air live with Brian Perry, Chief Investment Strategist and Portfolio Manager at Mint Asset Management. Thank you for that always thoughtful analysis here. Brian, you raise an important point. Ulta Beauty, new skin. There are some very important economic indicators when it comes to makeup in the beauty world. Even my father used to refer to that. So this has been going on for many, many years. So you raise an important point. What about the hot ones, the Mag 7 names? We did see NVIDIA participate in the recent rally and bounce back up another $2 or so today to 118 and change. Apple also in the plus column back to just shy of $222 here, I see. What about these big tech names here now?
Very fascinating right now, Frank, because NVIDIA the Blackwell chip got delayed by only maybe a quarter or 2-3 months, and their H100s are still selling out. So that's one item. But the other item is the stock has rallied from like 90 on that reaction low last Monday, to where it trades now, up at around 118 or something like that, up in the area here where it's just, it's like what a great reflex move here. So it's just it's the kind of company that you want to own, on any dips. Huawei, which is the biggest Chinese chip company out there, is trying to carbon copy their technology, and they're supposedly coming out with an AI chip. This is a very interesting story here because the stock rallied even in the news of that, because NVIDIA's got restrictions here, trade restrictions on what they can sell China and what they cannot. True with a lot of the chip companies and chip equipment companies here. So this is really an interesting time for that whole industry right now, because China's a big player in all this. But NVIDIA is trading up into their numbers here, which are going to be released on August 28th. It's fascinating that this company here all of a sudden got this really strong bid off of the $100 level, and now we're at 118 just a few days later. So I find that to be extremely encouraging for the market, because it tells me that smart money wants to own this stock going into the number, and this is the most important stock to the stock market.
Certainly a big M&A deal today, the Mars deal to acquire the maker of Pringles, Kellanova. Kellanova having a big day on this news. Are you expecting a pickup in M&A activity, and what's your reaction to this big deal today?
Well, absolutely. I mean, the cost of capital is coming down, and John Gray talked about this at Blackstone. I think he's a real prophet in this area here in terms of talking about where money flow is going to go. When the cost of capital comes down even 1%, deal flow picks up tenfold from where it is, because we're talking about scale here. So when your cost of capital comes down from 7 to 5 to 4%, on a short-term basis, and all the hot money, up there at the 15% level comes down to 13, 12, 10. It really drives deal making and deal flow, Frank. And so this is very important here, and the Fed knows this, Wall Street knows this, and it's a time where people are really licking their chops, to do deals here, because the cost of doing deals here for the last 2 years has been just, it's been prohibitive. And so I'm of the view that we're going to see a lot of takeovers here in the next 6 to 12 months, if the Fed is aggressive as what the dot plot plan suggests it is, and what the bond futures plan is. Now bear in mind, today's CPI number backed off this whole half-point rate hike to 25 basis points for September in a big way, because it just seems like, this shelter index, which we've talked about, is very sticky and very stubborn, but it's a big part of inflation. So we may not get that Goldilocks 50 basis point cut in September, which is going to but the market warmed up to that, because it says that the conditions are still good. When you don't have to drop your rents by a lot, it tells you that there's still really good demand, underlying demand under the hood, and that's what's important to know. Is like what's driving these forces, and what it is like it's a resilient consumer economy.
A lot of wild cards out there in the Middle East, and of course on this side of the pond, the political situation here. Would you be betting on volatility at this point? We saw that enormous spike a couple Mondays ago in the VIX index, the so-called Wall Street Fear Index, the volatility index. It's come down dramatically in the last week and a half or so. Brian Perry, what are your thoughts about betting or not betting on volatility at this point?
I think it's a very strategic and I want to say prudent, but I think it's a good bet right now, Frank. You got vol went up to incredible numbers there. It went up to what was it? It was it went up to 90. The VIX. Now we're back to 16, just a few days later. And I think now that you have the CPI, the PPI index out of the way, you have all the earnings out of the way, and you have Hezbollah, launching missiles that are getting through the Golden Dome, the Iron Dome, in Israel. And you have a feckless, administration at work here on geopolitics. I don't like, how the market's shaping up from the standpoint of very short term. I think we're going to be fine once we're through September and everybody comes back from the Hamptons and and everybody's back from vacation that matters. But I do think that in the short term, that owning some volatility, and you can own that through the ETF, through the VXX, which is trading at 47.14, which recently traded at 90. That's a good place to hedge your portfolio if you don't want to sell your stocks. There's always something to do to box your portfolio. And in the old days, we used to call shorting against the box, where if you owned 100 shares of Microsoft, you shorted 100 shares of Microsoft, and that way you boxed your position. You froze your price. Here, a lot of people don't have that kind of, hedging power or margin. So, you can buy the VIX, the VXX, to basically offset that. And if you have a portfolio along this market here, after they just made a very strong move higher here, I think that this move higher here was a bit of a gift, in the last week and a half. So I would not just take chips off the table, but I would sell some calls and buy some VXX to basically, hedge yourself from the standpoint of a market pullback that I think is open for a lot of, because the problem is you're devoid of catalysts at this point. They're bullish catalysts. The chance of a market drifting lower is quite high after this move higher today. I may be wrong and have been many times, but this move today was, to me, the cherry on the sundae.
Very interesting, and appreciate that excellent explanation as always, and those excellent points. We're on the air with Brian Perry, Chief Investment Strategist and Portfolio Manager at Mint Asset Management at mintassetmanagement.com. And Brian, let me ask you the big question. We only have a couple of minutes left here, but where are you putting money now and/or taking it off the table?
Okay, well, in the last, I've been more of a seller than a buyer here in the last week. So the travel trade seems to be pretty much getting soft here. And so I took my trade on what is called Make My Trip, which is the large Indian online travel agency. You want to own the Indian travel agency. That economy is booming, but you want to trade it on rallies here, and trade the rips and buy the dips. Secondly, I also been buying PayPal. PayPal was 300, and today it trades at 66. And they brought in a guy in from Intuit named Alex Chris, who's a brilliant guy. He ran their global small business enterprise at Intuit. The guy's masterminding a phenomenal turnaround story here, PYPL. I've been buying Dominion Power here. Dominion Power is in my region. They're Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina power provider here, electricity. And Loudoun County is the largest provider of data centers in the entire world. And so therefore you've got Dominion Power. It's a power-hungry area to run these data centers here, and the stock broke out, it goes higher, guided higher, and it is a great place to be for a safe haven. It's an interest rate play, and it's also an AI play here from the standpoint of superpower. I sold out of them. I sold a lot of out-of-money calls. I sold out-of-money calls here on GE, Costco, EMCOR, Berkshire Hathaway, KKR. This is time to sell premium into a hot market spike here, and then. On the notion of Bitcoin here, people are like weird about Bitcoin, but they really shouldn't be. It's in consolidation phase here. It was 23,000 back in January 2023, Frank, and today it trades, around 60,000, 59,000. It's 156% higher. It's going to take time to consolidate all this, but I think people should on these big pullbacks in Bitcoin be acquiring this, because I think that Bitcoin is going to be a big Trump trade going forward. and basically, I just think that we have a market here that's again not sure about. It's going to be working through a lot of uncertainty here, and when some things stabilize in the Middle East, if they do ever, but also with the Fed, coming up here with their Jackson Hole meeting here next week, and giving some direction there, and also with the fact that we've got a lot of economic news. So the market here is keen on all these jobless reports now, which is not a great thing. You don't want to see that. So hopefully that will also resolve itself here in the market. The job market just kind of neutralizes and allows the market here to just maybe back and fill a little bit, but maintain its bullish bias.
Terrific, Brian. Thank you very much. I wish we had more time. I could talk to you all afternoon and evening as far as I'm concerned. Really enjoy our conversations here. So thank you very much for taking the call here. That's Brian Perry, Chief Investment Strategist and Portfolio Manager at Mint Asset Management at mintassetmanagement.com. Also author, by the way, The 25% Cash Machine. Brian, thank you very much and have a great rest of the evening.
Okay, Frank. You do the same. Thanks very much.
Thank you. And right out to the freeways now. Gorgeous afternoon here in Southern California. Let's get the latest on your ride now on 790 KBC. 790 KBC welcomes David Gilmour coming to the Intuit Dome October 25th. Tickets are on sale now at Ticketmaster.com. Right now, caller 9 wins at 1-888-795-2222. You can get a pair of tickets to the show if you're caller 9. Call right now, 1-888-795-2222. Tickets furnished by Live Nation. Mottek On Money continues here in 790 KBC. We have a winner today on Wall Street once again. Another triple-digit move for the Dow on the upside. Dow 243 points, settling at 40,008. The S&P 500 up 21 at 5,455. And the NASDAQ gained 5 points, turning around late in the day, 17,193 at the close. The volatility index, the VIX index, moving lower again today by 11%. Gold up nearly $5 here after hours, back to $2,484.40 an ounce after spending the last couple of days above $2,500. The price of oil moving slightly higher now, 34 cents at $77.32 a barrel as we watch the latest bulletins out of the Middle East. Tesla shares dropping today by more than $6 at $201 and change. Nvidia up nearly $2 at $118 and change. Apple up 45 cents at $221.92. And Kellanova, the star of the day, the company that makes Pringles, being acquired by Mars in a $36 billion takeover deal. And now the latest news here in 790 KBC. Mottek On Money continues here in 790 KBC. LA's crime wave continues, impacting business with the focus of attention these days and more break-ins at stores and homes, especially in the San Fernando Valley. Quick action by Beverly Hills Police ended up with at least one person arrested after a break-in at a Beverly Hills pharmacy, which ended in a high-speed chase of a stolen SUV in South Los Angeles. Let's get the latest on what's happening out there now with the Honorable Dennis Zine, former Los Angeles City Council member, longtime LAPD Sergeant, current LAPD Reserve Officer. Dennis Zine is on the line. Dennis Zine, thank you very much for taking the call this afternoon.
My pleasure, Frank. Pleasure to be with you and your wonderful audience. Many of those folks are in fear of the continuing trend of crime, especially in the southwest San Fernando Valley. I know that the West Valley area, LAPD, is beefing up patrols. They're doing extreme patrols, things I haven't seen in many, many years, working with the Sheriff's Department, working with various sections of the LAPD. And I think what you'll find is a very large presence of law enforcement to try and bring this to an end, because it doesn't seem to stop. These burglaries, these home invasions just continue in the West Valley area. And we're talking about that area coordinated off the Ventura Boulevard, Reseda Boulevard to the 405 freeway, very exclusive, high-end residential. And the criminals have become so brazen that they will enter the residence when the residents are in their homes. I received 2 requests just of a couple of days ago, people seeking CCWs. They want to expedite, get their permit for a CCW. There's a lot of fear. And I will say that the memo I received today from Captain Welding of the West Valley area is doing a lot of things that are really unconventional to try and bring this to an end, all legal, all within the confines of the law, but going to extreme measures to bring this to an end, to bring back peace and tranquility to the southwestern San Fernando Valley, where these burglars and these robbers are just arbitrarily, at will, doing these crimes, and especially when residents are in their home, enjoying a peaceful evening, when all of a sudden these people come in and attack and rob, loot, steal, whatever they wish to do. So I will alert the listeners that LAPD is definitely picking up the pace to apprehend and to bring this to an end as quickly as possible.
On the line with Dennis Zine. You know that area very, very well, of course, and people are expressing terror at this point with these horrific break-ins. So glad to hear that there's been a good response there. Any additional advice, Dennis Zine, for the folks who live in that area? We've been seeing so many examples of stolen vehicles nowadays being used for these break-ins, and in Beverly Hills we had that situation where a pharmacy was broken into and a stolen car ended up getting chased to South Los Angeles. Just based on your experience and what you're seeing out there, what's happening with these crooks, these robbers, and these gangs that are using stolen vehicles nowadays?
Well, not only stolen vehicles, Frank, but what they're doing, they're stealing license plates. And they put what's called a cold plate. People don't know their license plates were stolen. They put that cold plate on a car and drive around. And if they get in a pursuit, then the people looking to say, well, wait, the police are at my door. Why? I didn't do anything. Well, your plate was stolen on a car that's fleeing from the police. So these criminals have absolutely no rules. They just do as they wish. But I know that the Beverly Hills Police Department, they have drones they launch on a number of the calls. They've got a very effective, very responsive police department. Their chief was former LAPD. And they have an excellent rapport with the community and excellent support from the city council, unlike the LA City Council, that's not all supporting the LAPD in their endeavors to make public safe. So Beverly Hills is definitely on the beat as quickly as it happens. So what we'll find is in the short time, I estimate you're going to see these organized burglary crews, and they are organized, and they're doing exactly what they're trained to do, is go out and create fear and steal anytime they wish, anywhere they wish. And you're going to go to where the pond is full, and that's a lucrative area, expensive area, Encino, Tarzana, the West San Fernando Valley, south of Ventura Boulevard. That's where the money is, and that's where they're committing these crimes. And there's a lot of fear. And like I say, people are contacting me. They want to get a CCW. And I would recommend, if you have that desire, do it. And keep it safe, be trained, know what you're doing. If you shoot someone, God help you, your life's in danger. You don't shoot a burglar, but make sure your life's in danger anytime you use a deadly force. But it's important that you know that the police department is pulling out all strings to bring this to an end as quickly as possible. And I commend the captain of welding at the commanding officer at West Valley area, who's issued a directive, which I have a copy of, making very aggressive effort to bring this to an end as quickly as possible, to assure the public that we're going to provide safety for them and their families.
And certainly Chief Stainbrook, you mentioned in Beverly Hills, getting a lot of kudos nationwide for his efforts in Beverly Hills, and including the situation, crime, if anyone's stupid enough to commit a crime in Beverly Hills, they do get nailed. They go after the people. In fact, 2 South Americans who were part of a crime tourism group were charged this week with stealing a man's $1 million watch in Beverly Hills after they were tracked to an Airbnb in the area. And what's interesting about this case, as we've seen in other cases, it looks like these two will be facing federal charges. Looks like they bypassed the DA in this case and charged these two with federal crimes, including interference with commerce, as we've seen in the past. They don't want to risk this case going to the DA and these people possibly getting off easy, right?
Well, you're absolutely right. And people don't realize that what the Beverly Hills Police Department does, they work with the federal authorities. You go through federal prosecutors. It's not like going through the DA's office where they decide to file or not file a minimal charge. The federal government is very aggressive when they are approached with a criminal and those federal charges. You're going to do that time. But Beverly Hills has used that, very successful. LAPD used it recently on a police officer, off-duty officer who was executed in South Los Angeles, off-duty with his girlfriend. We've used that because we have to bypass our district attorney, George Gascon, who really does not do anything to protect the public. So Beverly Hills, I commend Beverly Hills Police Department for their aggressive action on that. They want to make that place safe. Again, they have a very, very effective law enforcement agency. They have a very effective mayor and city council. They don't quabble about what the police department needs. They give them what they need to protect the people of Beverly Hills. And I've met with with Stanbrook, the chief over there, and he's very committed to public safety, and the community supports him. And that's what we need. Sadly, we don't have that in Los Angeles. And we've got Gascon, who does everything he can to help let these people commit crimes and walk away. So Beverly Hills, we can't all afford to live in Beverly Hills, but I guarantee you're much safer in Beverly Hills than you are in the city of Los Angeles. And we need to come around and make this happen, safety for everyone. I know there's some legislative measures being brought forward. The bottom line is criminals need to suffer the consequences of their criminal activity, and people need to know that law enforcement, the criminal justice system is there to keep them, their families safe, continuously safe, not just now and then, but all the time.
The Honorable Dennis Zine, thank you for joining us live on the line this afternoon. The Honorable Dennis Zine, former LA City Council member, longtime LAPD Sergeant, current LAPD Reserve Officer. Dennis, thank you very much for joining us live here this afternoon.
Thank you, Frank. Thank you.
Out to the freeways now, 790 KBC. Mottek On Money continues here in 790 KBC. Is California America's most divisive state? That question is asked and answered by veteran Orange County Register business columnist Jonathan Lansner, who joins us live this afternoon to talk business. Jonathan Lansner, thank you very much for taking the call here today.
My pleasure.
First of all, since you have your finger on the pulse of business there in Orange County, what's the buzz these days, first of all?
Well, I guess, we had a weak inflation number today nationally, which I guess got people a little bit excited that it appears the Fed may be starting to lower interest rates come their next meeting in September. That seems to be welcome relief for many, other than those who are in savings accounts who may see those yields fall. But it seems that the chances of the much dreamed upon soft landing, I think this hour seem higher, though in the past week there were days where it seemed lower. So
right.
I think the ups and downs are probably telling you that we are at an inflection point, and hopefully to the upside.
Certainly a lot of wild cards out there that could affect things. And tell us about your latest column here where you ask, is California America's most divisive state?
Well, I looked at a survey from Clever Real Estate. Their survey was trying to gauge which state was best based on a survey of 1,000 Americans. What I found interesting was that California ranked number 2 as most desirable state, wedged between Florida and Texas. But also California, to the same 1,000 Americans who were polled, was the least desirable state, followed by New York and Alaska. So that gap made, to my math, California the most state with the most divided opinion. And I think we all know that. I mean, you either love California or hate it these days, which is somewhat sad, but that's the reality. I think a lot of these surveys should be taking a little bit tongue-in-cheek, or just saying what people say and what they do are two different things. Because if you believe these surveys, you would see that the biggest states tend to do poorly, and that's California, that's Texas, that's Florida, Washington State, and New York State. And you see sort of small Midwestern states did very well. And I'm not saying one is better than the other, but population size and where people live typically speaks to what they at least can obtain, if not desire. Far more people live in, quote, less desirable states than lower desirable states. And some of that may be aspirational. And some of that is, particularly in today's age, people with high profiles or institutions with high profiles draw very divided opinions across a broad range of topics, politics, demographics, etc. So this gap may speak more to the times, so to speak, than it does speak to whether or not California has this large gap, because right next to it, Florida had a pretty large gap too, and there aren't two more states that don't differ, at least philosophically. So it's certainly not just a political measurement. It's certainly, I think, that there's no perfect place to live, and for everyone, that may be a different spot.
Well, that's part of the fun, trying to make it better. Veteran Orange County Register business columnist Jonathan Lansner on the line with us live. And it seems we're getting these huge headlines now about companies leaving California. Chevron, for example, finally throwing in the towel here, moving its headquarters out of San Ramon. And, of course, Elon Musk famously announcing recently, because of policies here in California, SpaceX as well as X, formerly known as Twitter, moving out of California. And today, I meant to mention this earlier. I don't know if you saw this, Jonathan. Defense contractor Northrop Grumman planning to lay off 550 full-time employees at its space business facilities in Redondo Beach and Manhattan Beach, marking another round of job cuts in the aerospace sector here. These numbers are adding up now.
Certainly, it's been a rough spot the past, 12 months in California, across the country. The reason the Fed upped the interest rates was to cool the economy, and they certainly have done that. California tends to be a little bit more interest rate sensitive because, one, it's an expensive place to live, and two, we have a lot of companies that are heavily dependent, if not on financing, Wall Street, and high rates tend to be bad for both financing costs and stock prices. I think the success story of California to date over the past, many decades is that for everyone who has left, there's some smart person in a garage or whatever cliche place you want inventing the next great thing. AI seems to be the next great thing, and certainly there are some companies here that are at the forefront of that. Whether that's that winning streak or luck, depending on how you see it, continues for California is the grand question. But certainly there are many institutions that for one reason or another have chosen, at least publicly, to say they're leaving. In many cases, it may just be the C-suite that picks up and moves to the new place and leaves all their workers behind because they're valuable workers, high-skilled workers, and don't want to lose that asset while they're making their statement moving. I mean, just a very interesting thing today, I don't know if you noticed, but the head of Starbucks was let go and replaced by an Orange County food guy from Chipotle. And the interesting twist that sort of bubbled out today is that he's going to telecommute. He's going to remain living here and sort of run the company from Newport Beach, where he moved Chipotle from Denver to Newport Beach. So at least one CEO thinks this is a pretty good place, Southern California, to run a business from, to counter others who think differently. So it's, it's a fascinating debate. And one of the other issues, too, is that someone in the state eventually has to get the hands around it. It's a very expensive place to live and a very expensive place to do business.
Absolutely, Jonathan. Well, thank you very much for that excellent update here. And we see Starbucks stock, which had that 25% jump yesterday, pulling back a couple of dollars today to 93 and change. Thanks for mentioning that. Jonathan Lansner, veteran Orange County Register business columnist, live with us here on Mottek On Money on 790 KBC. Stay tuned now for the 790 KBC News Blitz with Randy Wang. And I'll be back with more at 4 tomorrow afternoon right here on Mottek On Money, 790 KBC.
Former Navy SEAL Sean Ryan shares real stories from real people from all walks of life on The Sean Ryan Show.
Tucker Carlson, what is it that you think that people gravitate
I'm not
towards?
self-aware. I refuse to be self-aware. I don't even look in mirrors at all, which you can probably tell from my appearance. I don't have a crazy high IQ, or I really don't have that many skills. I would say my main skill is I believe my instincts. I don't hesitate to follow my instincts, ever. To the extent that I have, I've gotten in trouble.
The Sean Ryan Show on YouTube or wherever you listen.